Alright, ladies and gentlemen, section 11 point dose. We're looking at certain cultural changes during the latter half of the 19th century, particularly in Western Europe and even more particularly in France, because that's kind of where the action is, culturally speaking. So we're going to look at that time period called the Fin de Siecle. The Fin de Siecle. In other words, the end of the century. Makes perfect sense. We'll also look at religion. We'll also look a little at education, shopping, going to parties, big statues, blah, blah, blah. It's exciting times. Also some Muppets, apparently. So here we go. So the end of the 19th century and really the beginning of the 20th century in Western Europe was known by many as the Belle Epoque. And in other words for that, it's called the beautiful era or the beautiful times or the good old days. And if you know what's coming in 1914, we're going to fight a little war called World War I, which is going to be kind of a big deal. And during the death and destruction of World War I, people are going to be like, dang, you remember those good old days where we sat around in fancy dresses and feather dusters and whatever else these ladies are doing here? Man, those were the good old times, and now we're killing each other. So do you ever do that? I mean, do you ever look back, oh, I remember when I was this age and it was great. That was the Belle Epoque, man. That was the beautiful era. And during this time, you see an increased standard of living in all industrialized countries. The second industrial revolution does its best in adding to the standard of living. Electricity, different advances in medicine. These things help people live better, especially the middle classes. However, Southern and Eastern Europe, it's still a struggle. The struggle is still real for those guys. Russia, the Balkans, those areas, it is not really a very, very nice place to live. But if you're looking at Germany, France, Northern Italy, England, the Netherlands, that's where this standard of living is going up. And because of that, people are earning more money, especially the middle class. We looked at that in 11.1. They're making more money. They're working less hours, which means you have more time to spend at home and more money to spend. And that's a great combination if you want to go out and make some choices to improve your economy and improve your standard of living. One of the things that the people start to really spend more time on in their lives is sports. Now, I love sports. Sports is great. I don't like to play sports because look at your left pinky right now. Are you looking at your left pinky? Yes, you have more athleticism in your left pinky than I have in my entire body, but that's neither here nor there. We're not going to argue about that. What we're going to say is that with more time on their hands, the people of Western, Northern Europe, to a degree Northern Europe, maybe Northwestern Europe, had more time, and they spent it playing sports. Football, aka soccer, became very, very popular. You have in England and France and Germany, you have soccer clubs popping up everywhere across the continent, and people spending their time doing that. Rugby becomes popular. Automobile racing, when the automobile is invented early in the 20th century. Track and field events. But the big craze comes in the form of a bicycle. Yes, a bicycle of all things. And bicycle is going to have huge social impact on Europe. First of all, the big thing with bikes is that now you can travel from place to place faster than you could before. Instead of having to walk, instead of having to ride a horse, where the horse gets tired. But now you have an iron horse, basically, not a railroad. Okay, you have a bike, so that kind of increases mobility inside of the cities and from country to country. You also have a sports culture that develops that mirrors the rise of aggressive nationalism. Hey, I'm better than you. My country is better. Well, how do you know? I just kicked your butt at that sport. Right? It's going to mirror a connection to this thing called social Darwinism, which we're going to talk about, I think, in 11.4. Might have already talked about it in 11.1. I can't remember. But when we make that connection, you'll see why. Just this idea of I'm better and I'm going to survive by beating you and make a social statement based on that. You also have a new sports development during this period of time. In 1896, the Olympic Games come back for the first time, held in Athens, Greece. And they're going to be continued to held every 4 years. A way to prove that you are better than the other country, that I have a lot of pride in my country and I'm better than you. through a athletic competition, maybe not war. So the thinking is, if we do this, then we won't have to fight wars. And as we all know, that doesn't really work, but the Olympics are still cool. Now let's talk about bicycles for a minute, and these lovely ladies. I've never worn a dress in my life. I cannot comment on this in terms of how this works, but I would assume that riding a bicycle in a dress would be a difficult game. In fact, the way that many women rode kind of the contemporary before bikes, horses, would be by side saddle, meaning that you have to put both legs to one side and kind of ride sitting on the side of your butt. That's basically how the game went. So for women, it was middle class women and even high working class women. It was very difficult for them to ride these bicycles with their current wardrobe. Okay, here's some more ladies. This is straight up terrifying. So got a little Wicked Witch of the West action probably. So what ends up happening is, in order to, I guess, ride bikes a little less restrictively, again, I'm a man, I cannot comment on such things. But women started to change their wardrobe. You started to see the advent of women wearing, if not stockings, but pants. And it allows women to kind of express themselves wardrobeably. While riding bicycles makes it easier for them to ride bikes. So not only do you have increased social mobility in terms of getting place to place, but now women are using bicycle transportation as a way, as a means to kind of escape the social norms put on them as enforced by their wardrobe. And you see that happen from time to time. So ladies, as you listen, if you look down, if you're wearing pants, oh, you can think these bicycle riding ladies, I guess. I don't know. And oh gosh, I mean, really, this is kind of getting ridiculous now. Let me get here. Now we're smoking. Now we're smoking some more. I don't know. She's talking to ghosts. This dog's looking up a dress. I mean, what you have here is now a society which is, because of these social advances and these social changes, it's allowing women to kind of assert themselves. And we talked in 11.1 about how women were considered, especially middle class women, considered that domestic role and that they weren't to escape that. But now it's encouraging women to really kind of see themselves in a new light. We're going to talk in 11.3 about, we're going to kind of go back a little bit and look at how women were very much in the mid-19th century treated as that second class. But what we'll see here is that they start to kind of improve their state and improve their stance as the century turns. So along with the changes in terms of sports and people spending time playing sports and watching sports, you also have this development of mass culture, this development of spending money, spending cash in order to express that disposable income that you have. Working less, earning more money. That's a good combination. Cafes and taverns. A lot of you like to go to parties downtown Richmond. You see coffee shops just develop all over the place. A Starbucks on every corner in Paris and London and Berlin and Rome to a degree. In these places, Amsterdam, in these places in the late 19th century. Department stores. This is where people just go to shop, man. This is where you go shop and spend money. You buy the latest fashions. Really famous one in Paris, I have a picture of it in a minute, is the Bon Marche. This is where people go to spend that money. And you know it too. Fayette Mall. Get up on the road. Go to Fayette Mall. Richmond Center. You've got some money. Get $20. Hey, let me go spend it. Instead of saving it like I would in the past, now I can spend it because the promise of money for a solid, stable job that we talked about in 11.1, it's there. I'm going to get that cash again. I don't have to hoard it. And that's going to improve the economy as well as my country. And then Paris as well, dance halls, concerts, plays. You see people by the thousands going and spending time at these things. Again, why? You have more time now because you work less in these white-collar jobs. The money, the wages is higher or are higher as well, and you can really take advantage of that. So you can kind of see how people really, looking back on it, are like, man, that was just awesome. I could just go out, go to the dance hall, go to a concert, go to the department store, and before the Great War comes, people really looked back on this age with high favor. Okay, here's a look at the Bon Marche. Again, part department store, part zoo, part conservatory, part Amazon jungle. It's a lot of plants. Kind of looks like the Opryland Hotel down in Nashville, if you've ever been down there. So again, this development of mass culture, of things getting, very, very much commercialized. I've mentioned Paris in 1889, the celebration of the World's Fair, mark of the 100th anniversary of the French Revolution. And here you have the construction of the Eiffel Tower. 1889, many Parisians, and still today, thought it was incredibly ugly, which, you could, I guess, argue for that, but it is incredibly unique, only found in Paris and Kings Island. So, you also have all these down here. This is the kind of the exhibition halls where people would come from across the world to celebrate Parisian culture. Now, I want you to notice, the city, this doesn't do a great job of showing you where the city starts and ends, but it does appear that the city kind of starts and ends right around here. We talked about urbanization in the last section, and that trend's going to continue. Cities are only going to continue to get bigger. So while Paris at this point is likely, with London the largest cities in Europe, the numbers are just going to go up from there. Here's a picture, the River Seine, going down Paris, and then the Eiffel Tower right there, and then the exhibition halls. Again, this is in 1889 at the World's Fair. And then this is just a little bit earlier. I found this picture interesting. This was around 1875. This odd head on exhibition in Paris. I don't know. Not sure what that is. I thought it was an interesting sight. And then this big wrist with a torch, and then all these little people up here must be like midgets. Or something, or dwarves. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know if you've ever seen that before. Yeah. Okay, so a couple new inventions also kind of to mention, talk about during this time period, which also improved the standard of living. You had the telephone, which came around the turn of the century. Revolutionizing communication and now hearing voices from place to place. What? Crazy. You had the automobile in the early 20th century. You had the radio, the gramophone or the record player right here. You have motion pictures. All these things you could probably kind of, to yourself, talk about the social impact that they would have by being placed in. The fact is this: the world gets smaller, communication gets easier, and we as countries are becoming closer and closer together, meaning that political conflicts between us may be more and more exaggerated because of that close range connection. Okay, very quickly about education, because as I'm talking right now, there is none in Madison County because of Snowpocalypse 2015, but you might be listening in the future and be like, where's the snow? I don't see it. I have to listen to this, and there's no joy outside. Well, there's snow here right now. So anyway, education. The state's role in education increases. The Ferry laws, if you remember those in France, Jules Ferry, give education back to the state, and you're going to see that really across Europe. England, Germany, Italy to a degree, Netherlands, all those Western European countries, Eastern Europe a little bit. But the state's role in education increases. They emphasize loyalty and service to the state. I don't know if ours do that today, but whatever. That's another discussion. Compulsory attendance. You had to go. Suck it up. Get over it. Significant increases in literacy. People could read now. What? And then girls had actually less access to secondary education, I should say, than boys. Okay? So you still see a bit of inequality in terms of access to secondary education, which would mean high school and beyond. At this time, many people considered, girls who love this, girls, the only purpose to get education was to get ready for marriage. and that was your scene. Again, that may be more of a late 19th century, early 20th, and certainly past World War One. So there you go. And then a few words on the Catholic Church to close up this section. Catholic Church really is struggling to find its place in this new mass culture society because nationalism is becoming, as we'll see more and more, the state religion. The pride in your country, that's where you should put your faith. Your I guess, priority is to the country rather than to your faith. So where does your loyalty lie? The church really struggled to find a place in that. In 1891, the Rerum Novarum, let's see if I can find the Pope's name. It's not so significant, but I just love to make it appear that I know what I'm talking about. Pope Leo the 13th, there he is. Pope Leo the 13th issued the Rerum Novarum, which basically said that Catholics can't participate now in liberal politics, meaning that Catholics can be involved. It's okay for devout Catholics to be involved with the liberal parties across Europe. That you can kind of escape the conservative party bubble. That's fine. And this is actually huge because it's going to kind of set the tone for the church for the next century. The church argued that workers' rights must be protected. And it's going to transform eventually into this idea called social justice and making sure that all people are treated fairly. And the church really puts its foot down on workers' rights here. But it also declares that socialism is bad. So that's kind of a difference we'll have to look at. And then overall, there's a decline in church attendance, especially in the lower middle and working classes. And increasingly, men were less likely to attend church than women. That's just some trends going on. So that's kind of culture in the late 19th century, earlier 20th century. Big influence there is the fin de siècle, the Belle Époque. This beautiful times of shopping and dancing and spending money before everyone kills each other in World War One. And I'm not exaggerating on that account. So that's 11.2. We'll move on with a few things about women in 11.3. Talk about scientific changes, big section 11.4, and then we're on to Europe taking over the world at the end of Unit 11.